All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday, October 22nd. Got about an hour till we see the markets close. We are experiencing a red day today. SPY's pulled back quite a bit. I mean, by quite a bit, I do mean 0.75%. So, nothing too crazy. Go ahead and say hi in the chat if you can. Good to see everybody. Hope you guys are all doing well. I understand these markets have been a little bit frothy lately. Couple tweets, threw a wrench in everything for a little bit. And as of right now, as you guys can kind of see, my expectation was that we possibly could have seen a little bit of a up after we attacked that top of the range. But as of right now, it's looking a little bit more like a double top till further notice. It's also interesting too to consider is that, I did draw this out where the lower end where we should start to see a good bounce from is at this 665 level. So exactly what we did dip a little bit lower than what I had charted, but that always happens here and there. So, do we see this come back up to the top range? Do we see it head further down? I will mention that today it sounds like Oprah, which is the options price reporting, they seem to be having an issue, so you might be experiencing some slow, some slow brokerages. I know Robinhood and Webull were having some issues, and a lot of, again, everything that deals with options pricing seems to be a little bit off right now. But SPY's right back in this range. It's still holding fairly strong. We'll see what ends up happening. There was a tweet about, I believe it was cattle. Let me had this posted in my channel real quick. President Trump tweeted, "The cattle ranchers who I love don't understand that the only reason that they're doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done in the past 20 years. Terrible. It would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also." That was one of the big things that happened. Another thing that also happened was there is a supply chain insider for Apple that mentioned that Apple's iPhone Air demand has fallen short of expectations. I do remember there was there was a YouTuber out there that was mentioning how they sell cases for phones, and one of the worst performing phones that they've ever, or worst performing sales that they've ever had in terms of the iPhone was the iPhone Air. I think they said like less than 5% of their sales for these cases right now are iPhone Airs. So it does seem that, we did hear from Apple that they did really well in terms of iPhone sales overall. It seems as if the 17 has done, 17, yeah, has done fairly well in terms of, I think it was like 14% higher than previous years. But it does seem as if that the iPhone Air has been kind of a flop. The full tweet that I saw here says iPhone Air demand has fallen short of expectations, leading the supply chain to begin scaling back both shipments and production capacity. Most suppliers are expected to reduce capacity by more than 80% by Q1 of 2026, while some components with longer lead times are expected to be discontinued by the end of 2025. This indicates that the existing Pro Series and standard models already cover the majority of high-end user demand well, leaving little room to carve out new market segments and positioning, as previous attempts with the Mini, Plus, and now Air models have all failed to gain traction. So, when you think about it, Apple recently, and if you follow MKHD, which is a big tech reviewer, he also mentioned how the base model for the iPhone is actually fairly good and does a pretty good job of covering all your bases. their flagship model. Obviously, you know, if you can afford the Pro, things like that. But there is less of a gap between the Pro model and the standard base model that they have now. And then the iPhone Air is kind of just a fancy gimmick. You know, you can always understand that, you know, Apple does their best to try to innovate and things like that. But it does seem as if it wasn't as, you know, as well received as they kind of expected. So we saw the big move up due to them reporting better than expected sales, and then we saw this big sell-off today due to the fact and due to the tweet about their iPhone Air doing very poorly. So in terms of the markets themselves, it's a little bit mixed all over the place, but we will understand that SPY did have this huge sell-off today. Looks like we are recovering fairly nicely. We will probably see some chop by the time we hit 668, maybe 669 is kind of the, you know, high 668s. We do see a volume shelf over here, so I do expect that we'll see a little chop around there. But, you know, we're not exactly out of the woods. It's interesting, too, though. We are very close to these all-time highs, and you can see that the VIX, two things. The VIX is hovering around this 19 range. It popped up today a little bit over 20, came back down. You know, we've seen the VIX crush pretty hard over the last few days. You know, after, you know, the first was the tariffs and then the soybeans, and there's just been a lot of tweets that have been moving the markets. But if this does continue to relax down, we should start to see a little bit more of a rally. Oh, another big thing was that we saw there's cracks in the banking sector at this point. A lot of bad loans were written that are starting to finally be realized, and it's causing some issues. There's more and more regional banks that are starting to see issues with that. So Jamie Dimon said something about how, you know, if there's when you have one cockroach, it usually means that there's more to come, and you know that could be one of the things that leads into some more issues. Oh, we got Max here. All right, let me double check. What's up, Max? Let me make sure everything's working. I do not hear you.
I think I'm good,
oh,
right?
There we go. Okay. Sec. I don't when it does this. Sometimes my headphones do not link when I want them. Try the other one. Use my other.
Should be good there.
There we go. Testing. You hear me?
Yep.
All right. I was just talking about how the VIX popped again today. Markets are back also in extreme fear. So if you go onto the CNN Fear Greed Index, 26. You watching Big Bang Theory? I heard Sheldon.
Yeah. It's in the background.
Okay. Let me. So this is today. Your greed index.
We were taken at almost extreme fear way earlier in the day.
Yeah, we tipped on extreme fear. This little rally back after we bounced off of what, like 663. I had my line drawn at 664, 665, but we did bounce back up from there. Fear Greed Index now at a 26. We did tip onto 24 and 25 earlier today, which is extreme fear. Remember what Warren Buffett says. All right. Be fearful when everybody's greedy. Be greedy when everybody's fearful. We are getting into this fearful range. I'm not quite sure if we have exactly seen the bottom just yet in terms of this. I feel that money is a little bit hesitant right now due to the headlines that are being shown. Number one, obviously, the president can tweet something that's just going to tank everything. Again, he still hasn't really lifted from his idea of tariffing China 155% by November 1st, which is just like a week and a half away at this point. Um, the other side of it is the banking sector. We are seeing a lot of issues in the regional banking sector, and a lot of times seeing, there's a few banks that are starting to report some issues, and in a lot of cases, you have to remember that these loans that are written generally, if it hits one or two of these banks, there's generally going to be more of them that follow suit. It's just, when does it finally all hit the fan? So there is a good possibility we will see some more issues in the regional banking. What's interesting though is that the big banks did report last week, and they all seem to be doing fairly well. Um, Another thing that I've noticed is just that Bitcoin is really struggling at this 108 level. It's had a few pops back up, but you can always use, Bitcoin is, you want to think of it as Bitcoin is your indicator of how much risk people are really willing to take. It's the riskiest asset at this point when you consider it. And you can see that money has kind of been flowing out of it. Obviously, we did have some of the issues with Binance's order book and the way that people got liquidated. So there is a little bit more fear when it comes down to, it's not exactly fully risk on just yet when it comes down to the markets here. As of today, let's see, let me pull this up for you guys. We've got some earnings that are coming up. In particular, today we've got Tesla, IBM, QuantumScape that are coming up. So we'll keep an eye on those. American Airlines tomorrow. The big one I would say for tomorrow is probably Intel after hours. We did actually see quite a bit of flow for that recently. So we'll take a peek over at STAX and see what we can see with markets. Okay. So first one, obviously people want to see Tesla. Some calls, some puts. A little bit mixed throughout today. Let's see what WaveX shows right now. It's all sells, so we're not really seeing anything in particular. It's a little bit more bearish than bullish. I will point that one out. The big one was actually yesterday was Netflix. We saw Netflix. They actually beat their earnings. Right now, Kalshi and Polymarket, they predicted yesterday that Netflix would beat earnings. And while Netflix did actually beat their earnings, oh no, was it actually a miss? Oh, they did miss their earnings. I was reading that they beat earnings. Okay, well, they had a big sell-off from that. We saw some flow in stacks that really kind of hinted at this. There were some short-term puts that were taken. And I've been bearish on Netflix because to me, the recent campaign for it has really been a distributionary type of situation. We did see, Elon was even pushing for it where he was telling people to cancel their Netflix subscriptions. It was revolving around what happened with Charlie Kirk. There were people that were celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and one of the creators of a show on Netflix, got tied up into that, and so people were basically boycotting that and saying, "Hey, like, cancel your Netflix subscription. They fund these types of things, and we don't want to be supportive of that type of behavior." And so that in itself was something that had made me say this has more of a distributionary type of look to it. And I think we could see this come back down below 1,000 is kind of where I would say we would start to see some more of it bought up. But I will say recently we had they've been making some deals, but there is the other side of it where the um, Paramount and some of these other companies that are their competitors, I think, are a little bit more tied up with the administration. So the administration probably is going to be trying to, pump those and try to bring down their competitors. And as a result, Netflix is going to be one of the ones that will probably get sold off a little bit due to it. So, keep in mind, kind of watch where the money's going and where, who stands to benefit the most. One of the big examples that we've been using is the whole Kenvue situation with Tylenol. We saw a big sell off due to that, and keep in mind the administration has Dr. Oz, who is on the board with one of their competitors, which I do believe produces Advil. So, follow the money. Try to figure out what it is that's causing these narratives to be formed, and ultimately where direction should go with it. Tesla, I would say the narrative with Tesla has been all over the place. Obviously, we did have the huge pump when Elon was involved with the administration. Then we had a big sell off during their breakup. All that. It's kind of come back pretty strong, but I'm not necessarily convinced that we are going to be breaking upward just yet. This definitely could go higher. I had a bit of a bear case for Tesla, which didn't quite exactly pan out just yet. But until we see this break up above this all-time high, there still is a possibility. But this one's a little bit harder to tell right now for me. I will say that in our STAX software, definitely with what WaveX is showing, it's really a mixed bag right now. Let me make our faces a little bit smaller so you can see more. Um, More calls being sold than puts at this point, at least for today, going into our earnings. We do have some big money here. I will point out that Tesla, especially when we do see earnings, IV tends to go pretty high. And we've got a couple of these 100% IVs shown on the side over here. So, risk to reward, definitely more risky when it comes down to earnings with Tesla. If it does have a strong move, though, obviously it can be very rewarding if you pick the right side. Max, you got anything to say about Tesla in particular? Yeah,
There
there
we
you
go.
go.
So with Tesla, basically it's priced for like perfection. So even if they come in like slightly above expectations, we could see probably like a 2 to 4% drop in the stock, even if they come in. They have to put up like astronomical numbers, and then on top of that, they have to put in like astronomical guidance. And I think the big thing is the question is Elon keeps promising robo taxis in metro cities, but they aren't being delivered. So that's really going to like be a catalyst for them as well. Is kind of the whole robo taxi narrative as well. And I think like the big issue with Tesla is it's priced like for it's priced for it to basically rocket when it doesn't necessarily. Because here's the thing with them, if you look at their cash, if they needed to expand or anything like that, they could easily dip in without going into debt. And that's like the only issue with it. So it's really just like a narrative against Elon and what does the immediate expansion of the company look like today? And that's pretty much where it's at. So if anything, playing the post run up or pre run up would be best, and then probably playing like by the post dip. That's going to happen towards the low of the day of probably about 429. I could see the end of a demand zone ending at about 424. but we could also even go lower than that. But I don't know. I think the $122 million at the $500 call strike definitely makes me a little curious because someone bought that on Tuesday. So it's a little it is a mixed bag. Tesla is a nightmare earnings trade to make, to be honest.
Tesla's expected move for the week is about 6%. IV is at 120% for this week's expiration. Um,
Jesus.
and that kind of that falls right in line with what I've got charted here. Let me show you guys. What I've got charted here, I've drawn this blue box basically as the range that I expect Tesla to really chop around in. So even with earnings, that we're right in the middle of it. To the top end of it, about 7-8%. So about a 6% move to the upside is a possibility, and then a 6%, 7% move to the downside. You're still well within this range. So it definitely is one of those things where I would expect if we go to the top side of it, we see good earnings or good guidance, we'll probably see it chop around or sell off once it hits the top end of that range. If we see it sell off, we'll probably see some buyers step in, especially that we do have this 400, psychological level that will probably be defended as well. So, um, I'm not expecting any sort of giant move for Tesla. I mean, 6 to 7% for a company this size is definitely already pretty sizable. But unless something huge comes into play where he's got some new announcements and promising stuff for the future, I mean, I don't really see it moving more than that 6 to 7%, to be honest. It could maybe, and we've seen this with a few of the big tech companies. There is a small possibility we'll maybe see it test this all-time high, peak up above it for a little bit, right? Peak up above that for a little bit, maybe even head up close to 500, but I would expect it to have a heavy sell-off if we do end up seeing it go all the way up there. Um, those are just my expectations. We've seen a lot of that recently. Micron was an example. We saw a huge pop after earnings, sold off, chopped around. The big winner was ultimately the market maker. And then we also saw that happen with TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, where, even though they had good numbers and good earnings, we see it pop up above and then sell off and come back right down into the range. So I don't think anything at this point is necessarily ready for new all-time highs as well. I think the markets, there's a couple of things I think the markets are waiting on. Number one, this whole banking situation needs to be somewhat resolved, whether it is that they do pump more liquidity into the system, whether it is some sort of bank bailout, but ultimately it is just more money and liquidity that will help save those, the or acquisitions, even if a bigger bank comes in and buys out these failing ones and takes them out of the picture, and absorbs all the issues. The other issue that we have right now is that we are dealing with quite a bit of, just the whole government shutdown. If the government shutdown gets resolved, things are back to operational, that will probably lead into a little bit of a pump into the markets as well. And then the very last thing is just when QE is finally completely announced. I do believe that right now our rate cuts are expected to be a 25-point rate cut for the next upcoming meeting next week. But aside from that, once the money printers are turned on, money starts flowing again back into the system, I do think that we will start to see some new all-time highs being made. I'm seeing a lot of people on like Twitter calling that we'll see October, probably a little bit more sell off through October, and then we'll start to see money, the last 2 months of the year, money start to flow back in to make. There's a target that people are saying for SPY that we should see 700 or even a little bit higher than 700, the expectation at this point. Um, I will say my TSM chart is looking right to the T. Obviously, it didn't pop as high as I thought it would, but it did come back down to the lower end of the range. I think it should very possibly get bought up over here and maybe chop around before we head up higher. Um, QuantumScape had a very strong move to the downside. I believe was when is their earnings? It is today. Okay, QS. If you're bullish on this, I kind of like it when I see some selling off before earnings reports. It kind of lowers expectations and it gives you a little bit more room for it to possibly pop afterwards. Is there any new news that it's just all quantum all quantum sold off today.
Yeah, and they're all in the same pattern. I just looked at RGTI's chart against
Yeah.
QS's chart, and it's like it's a pattern of each other.
Yeah. All the quantum stocks, had this huge run up. And as of right now, it's the majority of them are gonna get sold off. I think the narrative has started to change a little bit with some of them, where the expectation of them to be profitable or to have some sort of possible target for the future is starting to be revealed. So there is a very sharp ABC pattern. I do think that we are coming back down to ranges like for this RGTI. We're back in the range where it should very possibly start to get bought up at least a little bit. So we're back at previous all-time highs before the next run up. So there is a possibility we'll start to see it come back. It also has somewhat completed a head and shoulders pattern up on the left here. So we had the head, then we have the shoulder. So if you measure head down to shoulders, then use that to target, we're right about in the area where that was originally going to target. So yeah, QuantumScape makes batteries. Um, but I think balance sheet wise, they haven't turned profit, have they?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still zero revenue, which is the big thing. So until they're able to prove that they can be profitable for the future, it's still based on hopes and dreams right now, based on what can happen for the future. Oh, before I do that, let's jump into STAX and take a quick peek to see if STAX has anything to say about QS. Just a single buy for today. 140K, which is somewhat on the higher end for something like this. You can kind of look at, the previous weeks, QS was trading up at 18 bucks. Almost, yeah, 18 and a half. It's down to 13. I don't think 13's overpriced at this point if you have a belief of what it can do in the future. IV at 130%. This is an interesting one. 71 cents per contract for this one, or 71 cents per share, so $71 per contract. $18 strike is a 35% move, and this is for next month. We've just got a month for it to move back up to 18. WaveX is definitely showing bearishness, but I would expect a big part of that. It did have about a 10% move down the downside today. Yeah, 11%, 11.3% down for today. So, yeah, QS is battery storage, but I think it kind of gets lumped into the whole quantum thing due to the name, QuantumScape. So, um, electrical products, producer manufacturing, next generation solid state lithium metal batteries, right? QS, I would probably say, if you're looking at the long run, wouldn't be a bad, long-term buy type of thing. Obviously, if you could have gotten in on it, a couple months earlier, you would have been in solid shape for it. Last one before we jump into what you guys are asking, IBM. I saw some puts coming in today. Some more calls than puts on WaveX, though. IBM's one of those boring companies that will do well in the long run, so earnings could really go either way, though. All right, let's see what you guys have. Somebody wanted to check Carvana. Carvana's been getting a lot of bad attention lately, and I think it's related to this uh banking situation. Chemo likes QS, right? Yeah, Chemo's pretty heavily invested in QS. He even did like a factory tour a while back to see what's going on with it. Carvana, I have a bearish thesis on Carvana. Um, it has run up extremely hard, but it's one of those ones where the valuation of it is gotten to the point where it's fairly irrational. We do see this very possible distribution type of pattern starting to build. I do think we might see a little bit more. It should take a little bit more time. There's going to be a battle back and forth. But if this is linked to some of the bad loans that are being taken, and as well, there's recently been a little bit of bad publicity when it comes down to Carvana. People talking about how some other cars aren't properly vetted before they're sold off. Some people experiencing issues buying through them, or their cars just don't last because, again, it's tech combined with auto sales, which works to some extent. But if they don't have enough of they don't really have mechanics go through and check things as well as they should. I can see where you buy a car through maybe Carvana, and a couple months later you have issues just to the fact that somebody wanted to get rid of their car because they know that there were some pre-existing issues that had been appearing. Um, there's talks about how the CEO's father is in charge of, or is owns the company that a lot of the loans have been written through. So kind of money being passed around, but ultimately for it to be this 84 is the PE ratio, so it's extremely like overvalued at this point. I would not be surprised to see some sort of distribution pattern start to take at this in this area. So, there is STAX AI prints. Let me pull that up for you guys. Carvana had some STAX AI prints beginning of October, middle of August, back in May, right? You want to keep in mind you can go peek over at their OI. The one back in May is well in the money right now. So I would kind of, take that with a grain of salt. Same with the two back in August. This one at the beginning of the month, October 3rd, we see Carvana for the end of the year, 377 is what they're aiming for. Or 377 is what they bought it. They're aiming for 450. And if you take a look at where it's at right now, it's dropped pretty significantly from there. So if you are looking at those, what I suggest you go do, take a look over as to what the open interest still shows on these particular names, and see, are those whales still in those positions? All right. And start to consider if there is continued buying and continued flow, for example, in STAX. Do I still see continued buying in Carvana, or do I see more puts being taken now? Right. Most recently, we have a flood of puts that are being taken, especially for the end of this week. Have a couple of calls that were being purchased, aiming for the upper end of it. Let's see what WaveX has to say. More bearish than bullish, at least for today. SMCI. I like SMCI in terms of a longer term play. Flow is indeterminate right now. A lot of stuff got sold off, but you can see both. Whenever you see both puts and calls, the red and green line, both underneath 0, it just means that they're being sold off. So this one's a little bit more indeterminate. Yes, it's still a little bit more bearish than bullish because the red line is above the green. but that doesn't necessarily give me too many hints as to what direction it's going in. We do have these two STAX AI prints that came in just earlier this week, one yesterday, and the one last week, technically. 63 and 65 they're aiming for. I would not be surprised to see this move in that direction in time. Let's take a look at our charts. Yeah, I've had this drawn out and charted. Even with today's little bit of a sell-off, it's still looking like it's holding strong. I think if it breaks down below $51.50 or so, keep an eye to see if we wick back up pretty quick. But yeah, my expectation is we should come back up to test this downtrend line that we have. All right. This does have a bit of, you can call this a cup and handle. You can call this a accumulation zone. But we're making higher lows, starting to wedge. Price range is getting tighter and tighter. I expect us to test this top of this or the bottom part of this downtrend, right? Test it right there. Probably come back down a little bit and then see a breakout. I'd actually even say we probably will test one more time before we see the breakout. But above 63 is not, is not out of the picture. I think that's a fair assessment. Let me see how long they took for these STAX AI prints. They have one is till January. The other one for June of next year. I kind of like that one. The only thing is it is a little bit pricey. $9.70. So $970 for these. But I would not be surprised. I mean, it is a 20% move from where it's trading at. And as it's dropped today, these are probably a little bit cheaper now too. Do I use a specific tool to check historic OI? No, I don't. If you have any ways to do so, I just pull up what I see on Weeble's usually the easiest one to at least see it in a data table format. You can always use Robinhood. Robinhood has a nice and easy user interface, but it's a little bit harder to check, a lot of things at once. So I'll usually just pull up Weeble and take a look as to if the OI is still there. And always take a look at the options chart itself and see the buys and the sells in terms of the volume as well. So Google. What was interesting today, I'll point out. If you take a look at the flow scanner, just do today. Flow scanner today, GOOGL was very bearish. 24 million puts to 3 million calls. But then Google, GOOG, the other ticker of it, had more calls than puts and was very, very bullish on that one. So, to me, that's just mixed. The difference between the two tickers is just one gives you voting rights and the other one is just, they move together in a sense. And they both represent Google shares, but one has voting rights, the other one doesn't. Yeah, we saw a lot of right. That's a lot of puts coming in right here. A lot of puts coming in right here. 6 mil, 6 mil, 6 mil, 6 mil. Very small expected move in terms of that. Double check tomorrow, see if that all converted into open interest. Got the chart. It does have a bit of a bull flag look to it and could definitely make new all-time highs over here. Broke out of the channel that we have. But what they're betting on is that it'll probably come back down and at least stay within the range for a little bit longer. Like I said, right now, there's nothing that says these tickers are ready to move up just yet. right? We still have, right, number one, Bitcoin is always a good indicator. Right now, Bitcoin is showing a little bit more risk off. Where if it shoots back up, we see a lot more people getting back into Bitcoin. That's one thing. We also see gold. Obviously, gold went up really really high. It's come back down. It's kind of just a normal pullback, normal healthy type of pullback at this point. But we did see this huge run up and this parabolic move for gold. What that also means is that people are very heavily going into risk off because gold is going to be that flee to safety when you consider it. It is down from that top 8%, 8 to 9% so far. But we'll see. Does it get bought up? There's a lot of people saying that we could very possibly see gold valued at 5 to 6,000 in due time. Right now, it's hovering around that 4K range. So, again, people have not flipped to risk on just yet, and that's where you're going to see names like Google, Tesla, Nvidia. That's when we're going to see this continue to go up higher. And I do believe, like I said, I believe a big part of that's going to be linked to quantitative easing. We're going to see easy money coming back into the markets, inflating asset prices, everything like that. Weeble. I already said I see a distributive type of range for this. Um, this huge candle right here, a lot of people said, oh, start to buy here. And it's already come down a little bit further than that. I think we very possibly for Weeble could come back down to this, right down to about $10 and maybe accumulate a little bit below that. I'm not necessarily convinced right now that they're necessarily buying into this just yet. Volume is a little bit high or higher than before, but nothing here screams, oh, big money wants to get into this right now. It's not exactly there just yet. So, if I were to draw, maybe test a little bit back up into this, but I think down here, I think a little bit under $10 is where we're headed. This wick down here, 950. Like if you're looking long term shares for this, anywhere between anywhere right under $10, I think wouldn't be too bad to be, gathering and accumulating these shares. Weeble's a decent platform, but I think too many people jumped in on this expecting it to be the next Robinhood right off the bat. And you got to keep in mind, Robinhood's doing so much more right now. Robinhood, with their prediction markets, with the way that they offer a credit card, there's so many different things that they do. And keep in mind too, a lot of these are, you know, uh, low fee or technically free trading, but keep in mind I'm using quotations here because a lot of these are payment for order flows. So there's companies that are paying Webull and Robinhood to scrape off the top of your orders, and brokerages that are or or market makers at the end of the day that are using that to, you know, take fractions of, a penny or a penny off here, a penny off there, but when you multiply it by the hundreds of millions of transactions that they're running, they make a big profit off of it. um Webull, I think, very possibly could make a little pop right here just because we are very oversold, but I would not be surprised to see us come back down to about 10. All right, back to STAX, just so we can kind of keep an eye on it for anything that comes in as we go into close. Saw some Teslas calls being sold, some calls being bought. Here's the gamble. If you want to gamble, 485 for this Friday. They spent 159,000 here, $2.51. That's, that's something that I'm okay with sizing to zero. But by no means am I looking at, let's say here, $5,300. No, I'm not gonna do an earnings gamble with 5K right there. So, you know, you do you, like we say. You do you. Do what floats your boat. But that would be the bull case for Tesla. Generally Elon does a decent job of on these reports, but markets are going to react the way they want to react. I hate having to do this, but if you guys could please go ahead and hit that like button for us on YouTube. Again, we do this every Wednesday for you guys. We'll be on here, especially during earnings season. A little bit of earnings watch and give you guys what we see and what we have analyzed when it comes down to these companies that are reporting. But like I've said today, multiple times already, we're still in that uncertainty, fearful range. Now, it's the fact that we're in a fearful range does mean that there's a greater chance and a greater likelihood that we could be headed up higher soon. But we're not exactly in extreme fear and staying in extreme fear. We're kind of back and forth right now. So, um, once we hear about what's going to happen with the government shutdowns, once we figure out and see a little bit more with the regional banks, and if anything, right? Keep in mind too, we saw what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, a year or two ago, and that never was fully completely resolved. That was just kind of the first indicator that there's some issues that are coming. Now that we are seeing more regional banks starting to fail and starting to have issues, um, keep that in mind that those are indicators that there's possibly a bigger issue brewing, and could be that black swan type of thing that could, cause bigger issues with the whole system. Oh, very quick too. I want to point this out. Beyond, we had a conversation about this in our Discord. Man, look at that wick to look at that candle today, guys. Overnight, I thought it hit almost 9 overnight. Yeah, it hit 9
Yep.
overnight. That's come down hard so far.
I warned everybody on Twitch yesterday. I was like, if you can get out above 250, do it because it's going to revisit 250 by tomorrow. And that's exactly what it did, where people had FOMO for maybe about all of 5 minutes. And then they quickly realized, like, oh shit. Like, the thing when we were looking at it, it was like $5. And then we saw it again at like four something. And I was like, yeah, this thing is dying down to like a $2 sell zone.
Yeah. Companies still got a lot of issues. Yeah, I think they did a great job of fueling this short squeeze. Yesterday, they reported that they're working with some distribution with Walmart to get them on the shelves a little bit more. I'm actually I'm not surprised as to where we're at right now. We saw this breakout of the channel that we have, this greater downtrend that we have. We popped up higher, retested some supply and demand zones, but now we've come right back down, right to where that trend line is. So 350 range, we could see another squeeze, but I do believe I saw something that said that shorts have repositioned themselves. They've reshorted it, anywhere between, I would say, $6 and $9. You probably saw a ton of shorts being taken on this. Um, will it go higher? Who knows? But I do want to point out, as soon as retail is all talking about it, that usually does end up signifying at least a temporary top for this.
By the way, Jenny, for Birkenstock, I trimmed like my position so it was just comfortably risked. So we are up 25%, but I did take profit. I had 5 contracts. I sold 3. I'm gonna hold the other 2, zero or hero it, just to see how it moves. It's not a high volume ticker, so it's not necessarily something I can give like great TA on, but like bundles were at 43.01. Top wick of those bundles were sitting at like 43.21. We had another major sell off at about 43.69, with our biggest bundle coming in probably around the 44.53 level. You could even go all the way back to our biggest sell off being at 46.67. So ideally, I'd want to hold these till 46.67. But again, we also have till November 21st. So we'll see how they open up in the beginning of November. That we could see a rally with the stock because it is a popular Christmas present that people will start buying, especially with the Boston clogs. As a person who's literally wearing a pair, I have a chef's pair and I have a normal pair. Let's just put it that way. I probably spent well over $1,000 on Boston clogs in the last 5 years, which sounds like a lot, but that's like 10 pairs.
Not even 10
And
pairs anymore. They're like $150 to $200 now. They used to be $100 each.
yeah, I know they were a
They've
hundred
gone
bucks when
up.
the last pair I bought, I got on sale for like $120, and I even thought I had to convince myself to pull the trigger on that. So yeah, Birkenstock, I just thought it was a fun swing because it was cheap. I figured it would move because there was decent volume behind it. That volume flipped to open interest, which is a good sign. So sold for profit.
It's at a
You,
decent area of support too. I'm on the weekly right now, but like it's bounced off this spot twice already. Technically 3 times.
so not only good, so not only girls collect good shoes. I mean, yeah, obviously, because guess what? I can wear those shits with anything. Nice dinner pants, sweatpants where I look like a homeless person. Like it doesn't matter. So it's one of those things where I just wanted to see how it moved because Birkenstock doesn't get a lot of flow,
Hmm.
let alone a lot of orders. And so when that unusual order came in, I was like, damn, this is kind of cheap too. What if this is another like random pump that we see? Even a $2 pump on Birkenstock would be like seeing the S&P move $10 like it did today. So that's kind of how I look at Birkenstock for the most part.
Yeah, I have. Dude, how many? I've got one, two, three, four, like 4 or 5 pairs of Birkenstocks. I mean, I remember when I was a kid and my dad had a pair, and I would, I tried them on. I was like, these things hurt my feet. They're so hard. Like, why the hell would you wear these? And like, my dad always wore them. And then I got older and got myself a pair. One time, my wife ridiculed me too. She's like, those are the ugliest things I've ever seen. And I wore them. I swore by them. One year I got my pair, got my wife a pair as well, and she wears those all the time now. And so it's I don't know. I personally never wanted to shift over to Crocs. I know that's what, I coach basketball. That's what like all the kids that I coach wear. That's what the younger
Yep.
generation wears. But I got the rubber versions of the Birkenstocks instead. And like, I swear by them. Like they're probably the most comfortable sandal that I own. Disowned.
I mean, I own a pair of Crocs, and to give you perspective, I've worn them maybe 5 times in the 3 years I've owned them. So I'll go back to my beat down Birkenstocks before I wear my Crocs any day of the week. And those things hurt my feet because they're burnt out at this point. So it's I definitely get it. I still haven't gotten my family onto it. My mom's a Crocs diehard wearer right now, and I don't think there's any getting her off of it because everything she buys for shoes is Crocs right now. But Yeah, I just thought it was a fun swing, low risk, low, like you're risking $200
Mm-hmm.
if you buy 5 contracts at the entry we got in at. You were down a little bit. We're up 25% now. Trim a little bit, leave some runners for some fun, and then just go and get into some other shit that makes up if those go to zero, or put a like tight stop loss on them. And that's pretty much the only advice I can give when it comes to that.
Fun fact about Crocs: in 2006, there was a movie called Idiocracy, which was a movie about people all being idiots about the future. And the future shoe that everybody was wearing were the Crocs. At that point, they were not popular. And then now we are now in the future, and everybody wears Crocs. Just
Okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Tesla.
Tesla, we just had market close.
I think IBM personally might be the winner of today, by the way.
Pull that up.
We we saw it just pump up to 289.20 for the high of the day. It dropped off a little, which could be some profit taking, but I don't know. I'm caught. Tesla's priced a little too perfectly for my comfort, meaning like it needs to do everything right to see like a solid pump. IBM, the bar is a little lower in the sense where it's grandpa's stock. So if they come out and say something about quantum, it could totally flip the script, because the reason we saw a lot of quantum companies sell off is Google coming out and announcing their clitoris chip or whatever that is supposed to take over for quantum. So that's why we saw all the cheaper companies kind of sell off today, because now people think that um, Google's gonna now be that like head honcho, which I wouldn't be shocked if they are, but at the same time, like IBM was making $25,000 laptops before it was popular. That's all I'm gonna and that is the hill I'm gonna die on. Also, I'm holding IBM for more than 5 years, and people keep asking me for advice, and I'm like, I bought this shit back in December of last year, so like we're only $13 away from my price target, which I was like, I think it'll be $300 a share by like January of 2026. And I said that back in December of 2024. So
Yep, you did.
I I've been heavy on IBM for a very, very long time. Same thing with RGTI. People are like, what do you where do you think I should enter? I'm like, I don't know. I have an $11 average, and I don't plan on like touching that. It's in a whole different account that is a nightmare to log into right now for a reason, because I'm not touching it until 2030.
That's still getting a little bit of a pump, but nothing's reported yet.
That's just the bull market coming out.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus, 441. It just broke through its opening range break low of day.
So the thing with Tesla too, though, if you take a look over here on the right side, their PE ratio is at a 259.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking nuts. That's just
And they should
nuts.
know, by the way, if they showed up to DGenomics or watched our DGenomics balance sheet video, they know a PE ratio of that is very, very dangerous to get
Hmm.
involved with. The we did a poll, and we saw that we basically had a vote of like Tesla's probably going to base out and just lose like 2 to 4% potentially, and then see a rally back up to the upside. But in terms of it having some crazy beat, that would be insane. And what did I tell you about IBM? I think they're going to be the winners, and even winners meaning like they burn both sides and don't really lose anything at the end of the day, because that's better than a loss in this current economic climate we're in.
Tesla's starting to drop.
Can I link? Oh, Eric, can I send links in here?
You should.
Okay, because someone asked if they could get a link to the balance sheet class I did.
Oh.
But yeah, that class, it just goes over like how to read a balance sheet effectively. I used to do this for a living, so I apologize if it's a little rusty because it's me literally trying to think through of like how to explain my job to someone who's never done my job before.
Okay, Tesla. You know what I said? 7% share, 7% move, right? Key facts: Tesla Q3 earnings report due. Revenue expected at that shares may swing 7%. Well, so we'll see. Hasn't exactly moved just yet. It's down like 1.5% so far.
It just dumped off that demand zone that I was in, or
Mhm.
yeah, demand zone I had.
QS is supposed to report too, right? Oh, QS had a huge wick up. Nothing reported yet though.
By the way, this will be a great indicator of what Intel earnings will probably look like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Wow, QS with that huge.
Yeah. Huge, huge wick. 4, 3, 2, 1. That's not a good wick to see though.
This is gonna be
Has
such.
IBM dropped, but nothing's reported yet.
Yeah, they dropped off, but they're gonna be guidance based, really. If they don't have anything to say in the quantum space, they're gonna have a huge sell off, probably. But that's why having an average of about 211 a share is not much of a stressor when it comes to these type of calls. Numbers are out for everybody. C4.
Tesla's record revenue tops forecasts. Credit expiry. IBM nothing yet.
Wow, tax credit expiry drives US EV sales. Never thought you'd hear those two words in the same sentence. Just saw a litany of SPY puts, by the way, coming towards market close.
All right, Tesla missed EPS, beat revenue. EPS down 31% year over year, missed by 11%. Huge beat in free cash flow.
That's
It was
good.
kind of a
I mean,
mix.
we expected that. So one of the things we were talking about was like a lot of times when companies go through like a struggle, instead of them being able to tap into their cash flow, they have to go into like more debt, you know?
Paul, IBM had that wick up. Ah, came back. Which way do you want to go, IBM?
I'm telling you, it's going to be a conference call move. It's got to be a conference call move.
I mean, this obviously the earnings are released, but
Oh, geez.
oh, there we go. Starting to move
There
down,
we go.
down 4%.
Yeah, no, they don't. They didn't make any type of. If they make any type of quantum announcement, it rebounds. I'm telling you right now.
IBM had a double beat.
Guidance is probably dog shit though. No one's
Yeah.
buying their stuff like that. Like I'm not a person who's like, oh my god, IBM is gonna be this high. No, they just set the standard and then they get fucked whenever things matter, basically. So right now in quantum, they're gonna get the shit end of the stick because they're gonna be the first in place to do it without real proof of a need or a market that's made for it yet. But in like 2 to 3 years, people are gonna be like, why are they worth so much? Well, it's because they were the first to innovate and kind of put their neck on the line for the technology that'll actually run true AI that everyone's expecting, basically. So I have a very long-term thesis on them. So moves like this don't really worry me, to be honest. If anything, it makes me want to buy more. Yeah, no, I agree. It's basically like having a really sexy lingerie product, but then having a bunch of overweight dudes trying to sell it. Like that would be the easiest way to describe it, is like, hey, oh my God, like look at these. It's basically like Kim Kardashian being bored and being like, hey, I'm gonna make thongs with artificial vaginal hair on them so women can feel like they have bushes without having a real bush. And I'm not even kidding. She made bras with artificial nipples on them, for God's sake. So pretty much it's the same kind of effect, except with quantum, it's going to go through this struggle bus that AI went through until NVIDIA threw that GTC event and introduced Blackwell. So I expected this with IBM. I'm not worried about it. Again, my average is gorgeous. It's the best average you could get. It's the biggest average ever. So Uh, but yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I think like we'll be more than fine. I think Tesla burns both sides of the candle, maybe, Eric. What do
Yeah,
you think?
I don't think it's going anywhere. This reaction already is very telling. Like unless they make some sort of announcement during their earnings call that pushes it up or down significantly.
Well,
But
I know the big question is robotaxi deliveries, and are we ever going to see them? I'm hella out of pocket. Hey, go talk to Kim Kardashian. She's the one releasing fake nipples and fake bushes. You think that you'll see IBM back at 211? You think it could drop $76? My average is like 211 something and some change. So, I mean, I would not suggest that because, like, I got in fucking December of last year. My quantum theory, like, to give you guys perspective, I wrote a real estate theory like 2 years ago that's still upholding because I said we're not going to see, unless we see something crash, we're not going to see real estate drop below like 6.2% for interest rates. And look at what's happened in the last 2 years. We haven't seen interest rates past 6.2%. So when I write out a thesis, it's not something that I take lightly. I put a lot of time into those. Quantum, my thesis is IBM and Rigetti. Outside of that, I don't care. Unless I hear someone that comes up with an MVP where the IP is going to get bought up. Rigetti's the IP play for me. IBM is the innovation play, meaning like they're going to be the ones that lead the industry, but they're going to have to take some kicks in the teeth between now and when a quantum event actually kind of rockets off that industry for the most part. Yeah, I mean, everybody's been talking about QBTS. If we went off of like the noise that we heard, we would be some broke motherfuckers. I can tell you that much. Like, we would not, if we went off noise and not off like actual analysis and understanding of the industry we're investing in, then I can promise you right now, we would be in portfolio pain right now. Because at the end of the day, you have to look at it like this. When it comes to emerging technologies, having a actual product that people can go, oh, this is like this is a real thing with some real potential. Um, I very much urge you go do research on like what happened with predictive analytics. Go do research on that transition from predictive analytics into AI, because that's what we're going through with quantum. From AI to quantum is going to be that new transition, but it's not going to be a replacement, it's going to be an enhancement.
Tesla's only
Yeah,
down 1%.
Jesus, Tesla's a I mean, dude, IBM's only down 0.8%. It's not even down 1%. And their conference call hasn't even started.
No,
And I guarantee
IBM's down 4%, almost 5.
Oh wait, I'm looking at
Yeah, you saw Tesla that I had on.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, four. Wow. Closed up over 2%, now down 4%. Damn. Damn, damn, damn.
Tesla's 7% move isn't even coming at this point.
I mean, he would have to literally do like one of the biggest buybacks in the stock market history at
Uh,
this point.
that's always a possibility.
Because they have the cash to do it. That's the sad part. And that's the only thing that makes me nervous. And that's why, like, as a chat, we decided we were going to stay away from Tesla earnings, because we were just like, well, the risk to reward ratio is pretty much like 0.2% at this point, you know?
Yeah.
By the way, big shout out to Alienware. They gave us 50% off a new PC. So the one I wanted to buy ended up being exactly in the budget of what I had saved already. So we were able to get that done. And then my buddy also threw in a 32-inch, like 240K monitor, because he was like, you helped me make my number. So we got a big upgrade coming for the streams where we'll have pretty much no latency. And we topped out today 33 people on Twitch.
Nice.
So shout out to all of you who decided to show up today and take those spy puts for about 1,000%, if not more, if you stuck to the levels that we drew out for the day. That's crazy.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else to go over. If you guys have anything before we log off, go ahead and drop it into the chat. But Intel tomorrow, I think, is the big one. Oh yeah, let's double check. What did QuantumScape move back up? Nice. QuantumScape moved up hard.
They have to have good guidance.
Yeah, I don't think they made money yet. Still though.
Yeah, their EPS is probably down like they're like, we're expecting a 20% loss.
Grab's right at the support that I drew. So this is, if it's gonna make a reversal, this is where it's got to start happening. We do see some bullish divergence on my indicator, so that's a good sign. And the wick down below this 550 range. Could be set up. I mean, it does have earnings coming up. I do remember reading that they've got quite a bit of cash on hand too. PE ratio is pretty high though, is the ugly thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, I've had some friends showing that they were over in Asia and for food delivery they've been using Grab. So I mean, even if you're traveling and you're using this, it kind of shows how much of a market share that they already have. It's got this falling wedge type of pattern, so we could probably see a breakout pretty soon.
By the way, IBM Q3 revenue beats estimates on AI demand, and they raised full year revenue outlook as well. So we could see a nice little bounce here. Because when I look back at the chart, it's bouncing off like a 274 level that it's like kind of flirting with right now. So we could see a nice bounce, especially if they're because no one expects them to be cool or fun. Everyone expects them to be boring as shit. So there's no real expectation in terms of like the open AI conference call. Ooh yeah, Grab. That was another one I got asked about too, and on stream today.
Yeah, grab flow. If you just filter for the buys, it shows quite a bit of bullishness, but it's all 2027, 2026. February 2026 being one of the shorter terms. I mean, it's back down to like 560. Um, but I think long term, if you have some time on this one, I wouldn't be too worried about it at this point. Yeah. Um, I have a feeling today's sell off in Intel will probably be disregarded by tomorrow for hours.
I I was gonna say I have a feeling like for some reason I feel like Intel is gonna be one of those we're gonna see like a Lululemon sell-off type event, or that thing is gonna pump to like $50. Like I don't know. Because I feel like retail is going to be heavily invested in it, and that's the nervous point for me. Is it's cheap enough for retail to like overvalue it without institutions having to get behind it, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
You might have
I
all the Trumpers out there.
yeah, I mean, part of it's just like I don't know. I feel that even if the numbers aren't too great for Intel, like Trump's just gonna tell his buddies to pump the stock. So, I mean, the flow that we saw very recently was all pointed at it going up higher. Still fairly bullish in the flow. Then these for the end of October, October 31st, 42 and a half. It's down to 36. So the unusual calls that we see here, I mean, not a ton of premium. Two, three, four, about five or $600,000 right there. So I don't know. Intel looked really appealing the other day, and obviously the sell off with everything else today. You know, Spy took a little bit of a dump. We could have, we already told you guys too. We're testing those all time highs. It's not unusual to see some selling off and for a battle to be appearing at this range. And we'll see. We'll see if Spy recovers fully. I mean, for the sell off that we had today, it basically came back at least half of it. So came back a little bit over half of it. We'll see what direction it decides to continue in. Let's check earnings. So tomorrow morning, American Airlines. If you guys are still in that, fingers crossed for you guys. Hopefully, we see the pump that we were expecting. Remember, I already got out of those. Intel, Newmont, Alaska Airlines, got Ford, Procter and Gamble coming up on Friday. So still got some stuff. We are next week even more earnings to consider. So we'll be back at it. We'll be very, very active in our Discord. Reminder for you guys, especially if you made it this far, go ahead, hit that like button for us, the thumbs up button on YouTube. Helps us out a ton. Just a quick little click from you guys makes the world of difference for us. If you are not in STAX or in our Discord, the links are all below in the description box. You guys can get 20% off on STAX if you'd like. Use eRoo Love STAX. Have to go get that code made specifically for you guys in our over here in our live streams. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel that you guys are watching on. We are posting our Investor Central Academy series on a regular basis. Every Friday, you guys will get another part of that episode. We just posted the options introduction episode this last Friday, and we got another one coming up. All right. As always, we will be back in our Discord live streaming tomorrow. If you got any questions, don't hesitate. You can always go message us at help@investorcentralclub.com. We're here to help. Here to help you guys understand these markets a little bit more and give you guys our insights as much as we can. But enjoy the rest of your beautiful Wednesday. We will see you guys the next one.